I got a speeding ticket within my first 30 minutes of being home.
You feel like you're just not cut out for it. You know, you feel like it just doesn't match the personality that was developed in the SEAL teams. It doesn't match your character. It doesn't match any bit of you.
There's a lot of different things that can help, but what works for you may not work for me. I had tried several things, but what I've come to find is there's a physiological aspect that we don't understand yet.
Welcome back to Mulligan Brothers, and today I'll be listening to 3 Navy SEALs. Today's video, as always, was sponsored by Huel. I'm drinking Huel Black Edition, which has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein and slow release carbs to make sure that I can stay satiated and proteined up whilst I make these documentaries. If you want to find out more about these, go to the link in the description. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the video. So, I mean, the first adjustment back to civilian life, you know, like when you came back, had the obsession with the safety element of, you know, trying to stay safe, doing absolutely everything that you could in your training, had that kicked in after the first deployment? No. So that took a few. So what was your first experience coming back to civilian life?
I got a speeding ticket within my first 30 minutes of being home. I pulled out of the team. I took a left. We were all going to go. I didn't drink I used to drink Corona back in the day on a fake ID. And all I wanted was a Corona with the boys at a certain bar we have down the road. I was like, that's all I want. So we went to Germany for a couple weeks. Like, get a beer. I'm like, nope. I'm waiting till we get stateside, get a Corona. I'll be good. That's all I wanted. I pulled out of the team, took a left and started hauling ass down the road. And I don't know what was going on. I disregarded everything. And maybe that's just an immaturity thing, but there are no red lights in Iraq. There's no yield, there's no stop, there's whatever you want to do, whatever you have to do. If cars are in your way, you push them off the road. If they're not pushing off the road, you put them off the road, right? So for me, I came around and cars are braking, I'm in the median and like I'm blowing through, it's a hard stop at a red and I blow through the red light and before I know it, I mean, I've only gone 3 miles, get pulled over. I forget what I was doing, just call it 70 and a 45. He's like, what the f are you doing? I'm not going to make an excuse right now. I'm just going to tell you, I just came off a plane from Iraq 30 minutes ago, and it's my first time driving in the last 6 months on a road with actual lights on it. I apologize. If I remember correctly, he was a former Marine, and he cut me some slack and let me go, and he's like, we are not in Iraq anymore, dude. Like, you got to be able to power it down. I mean, I remember just sitting there, like just taking in all the noise and all the people and all the bullshit. And you kind of just look back at them and you hear what they're talking about. You see what they're talking about and it's hard to relate to them. Like, it's hard for me to sit back here and hear you complain about that when you have no idea what's happening overseas. I'm not even talking about the Iraqi people. I'm talking about Marines that are just getting decimated right now. So you can sit here and talk shit about our president. Like, for me, it infuriated me. Like, it doesn't matter who's in the office right now. We're in that country right now and they're actively trying to kill us all. And we're only here so you can sit here and talk that nonsense. Like, I don't know, for me, it made me super proud to be a patriot. Like, I think when I came back from that, I was really bitten by the bug. Like, I've never been more proud to be a patriot than after I came back from that first tour. Because then I saw it. I saw how far people would go for freedom. Like, there were some people that stopped what they were doing and joined the military who had no business joining the military. Some super high level people with some really diverse educations that could have made a shit ton of money, stopped what they were doing and joined the Army, joined the Marine Corps, joined the Navy to go serve. And I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you get to meet them when you're over there. A normal dude just sitting next to you and you're like, you did what? He's like, oh yeah, I did blah, 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 Microsoft, this and that, like VP of so-and-so. What are you doing here? He's like, I couldn't sit back. He's like, my father didn't serve, my grandfather didn't serve. He's like, I am not about to sit back here and let my kids fight this war. I'm not doing that. Okay. Like, really set it back in balance, like how far people are willing to go. No, for me, it was a huge honor. I say it to everybody. Like, don't thank me for my service. Like, I would have done that shit for free. I loved it. I still do.
When you retired or came back to civilian life, even in between Was that like, that contrast to be in such an intense war zone and then to come back to civilian life?
Yeah, the transition is tough. And I think for me personally, it's ongoing every day. You know, I have my moments when I'm like, this civilian stuff, you feel like you're just not cut out for it. You know, you feel like it's just not, it just doesn't match the personality that was developed in the SEAL teams. It doesn't match your character. It doesn't match any bit of you. And the whole like fake it till you make it is what comes to mind. You really try your best to, you know, embrace this whole civilian side of life. And for some guys, it's more difficult than others, you know, and they'll end up turning to alcohol and drugs and God knows what else in order to just try and get through it. But the reality is you just have to face it head on. But I think every guy deals with what I call going from hero to zero. And I always tell people that it's like when I retired, you hand in your active duty ID card, okay? That ID card it's a CAC card. It's white, it's sturdy, it's flexible. It has like a computer chip built into it. Your picture on it is in color. All your stats are there. It's cool, right? It's something you've had your whole career. And when you retire, you turn that in, and then they hand you this laminated piece of crap, blue, retired card. The picture of you on it is blurred, black and white, and it's just like, it's just representation of what you've just become, you know? And so then you have to battle that, because I like that white CAC card far better than I like that damn little crappy retired card, right? And I think that in itself says a lot, right? And then you've got to just figure it out. And, you know, guys that are having issues and the ones that I've tried to help out, I just tell you, you just got to put your head down and go. But sometimes they don't remember how to put their head down and go when they're by themselves. They're not surrounded by their buddies. And they need more than just encouragement. You know, they need that brotherhood outside the military, and depending on where they retire to and where they live, they may not have that. And those are the guys that I think find themselves getting in real trouble. For me personally, I've just task saturated myself, and I try not to think about it. If there's one thing we're good at, is compartmentalizing, you know, compartmentalize all that stuff, deal with it another day, just keep moving forward. And so I just find myself stay busy, you know, check off as many things as you can, experience as much as you can, and deal with the trash some other day.
Was there a moment of civilian life that you remember, like one of those moments where you was like, it was difficult and, you know, you overcame it?
I've been retired for going on 7 years now. And I think there's been a couple of moments where being a civilian is kind of an issue. I know that for me, I like to run. So a lot of times when I'm on my runs, it's like therapy, you know, so I'll have moments of that compartmentalized information that all of a sudden jumps right in your face. Whether it's, you know, buddies that have died, or just dealing with, you know, being a civilian and not doing adrenaline, you know, induced missions and fun stuff, you know, and you just, but it's on the runs is when I have that realization, and I end up, you know, having my own moment when I'm like, I don't know if I like this feeling or not, you know, and you just keep running and push through it. And I feel like talking, a lot of self-talk helps too. You know, it sounds crazy. And my daughter thinks I'm crazy, but she'll be like, Dad, you're talking to yourself again. I'm like, I know, I'm just trying to kind of get through the damn day. But I think everyone has their own form of therapy, right? You know, I remember as I was getting out, I went to this program called NICO. And if you have certain symptoms like, you know, crazy nightmares, anxiety, migraines. You get to go to this program where they admit you for 30 days. And you're doing a group therapy, you're doing individual therapy. But I remember being a part of this, and they had us doing music therapy. And you're literally banging on drums together. Now imagine a bunch of special operations guys sitting in a room with these bongos and trying to get in tune with one another. And you've got a lady who's a music therapist sitting in the center, giving her best effort to try and get all of us to just do it together. Just do it together. Boom, 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 boom. But we're not. It's like boom, 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 boom. And we're all looking at each other like, what the fuck are we doing here, right? And, but eventually you find what works for you. You do art therapy where we're painting. Imagine a bunch of Navy SEALs trying to paint canvas together. You do like yoga, you do all these things. But I truly believe you have to find what works best for you in order to kind of just get through the moments that you may have that aren't so happy, that you kind of think about your post-military life. And so, for me, it's self-talk, it's going on runs, staying in shape, and, literally working all that stress out physically seems to be what works best for me.
So advice for other guys going through it, like you said, there's some people who come back and they do struggle. Have you got any advice for those people?
Yeah, for guys that have issues, I think they got to talk to someone. They have to create, a tribe of folks. It could be family, it could be friends. Hell, it can even be a stranger, at work. Just have that moment and talk it out, I think there's all these different forms of therapy out there. And, I think it's important that it's okay to just go and find the one that works for you. Don't be shy about it, because that tends to be the problem. Is there's a stigma that comes with, getting help or asking for help, because number one, we're used to doing everything ourselves anyway. We're very independent, very capable guys. So we don't want to ask for help, because that's like, that might be a form of weakness. I'll just do it myself. But when it comes to dealing with this and your emotions, it takes other folks to kind of help you get through it. If you try and deal with it on your own, you'll go crazy. And you probably won't get too far, It's very difficult unless you've got a split personality, to get advice. So, and the advice you got from the other Clint may not, work out so well for you. But yeah, I think just got to talk. You got to talk it out.
I hope you're enjoying this video so far. Today's video, as always, was powered by Huel. Huel has been an absolute game changer for me and my life. I love drinking their Black Edition. They're ready to drink. It has 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein, and slow release carbs. When I know that I can just reach into my bag and grab a bottle of Huel on the go, it has changed my life. And as I'm training for the world's heaviest marathon right now, where I lift 220 pounds of weight for 26.2 miles, and then I do 450 miles with 70 pounds on my back, Huel has been my go-to fuel. Don't just take my word for it. The hardest geezer who ran the length of Africa also downs a couple bottles of Huel whilst he's on his run. So if you want to join someone like Hardest Geezer, or if you've just got a busy life in general, Huel can be an absolute game changer. Head to the link in the description where you can find out more about Black Edition and other products of Huel, and some exclusive offers down below. Thank you to Huel for sponsoring the video. Let's dive back into the episode. What was the transition? Was there ever I'm guessing there was a low moment afterwards, but was it back up on my feet, I'm going to work straight into this, tough mindset? Or was there a transitionary period where, you had to face difficulties? You mentioned alcohol on one of your first deployments. Did that creep in, the idea of turning to alcohol?
Later. I don't want to say in the beginning it did. Probably 3 years after my injuries, I was almost healed. I'd launched a nonprofit, once again, driven, I don't know. I don't think I created this nonprofit because I wanted to prove something. I created it because I wanted to help other guys from the things that I went through. But in that process, really struggling and really started fighting a lot of the invisible demons in my head from war, not sleeping, kind of reliving the firefight. You know, my career being thrown off course. I had kind of come to grips by that point that I was never going to be operational again, that this was the best they could do, which, you know, really limits, I mean, for operational purposes, not being able to use this arm to grab gear and things like that. I mean, it's really hard for me to buckle a helmet. That kind of stopped me from being operational. So I think all that settled in, and I kind of started pushing everybody away. My wife, my kids, and, you know, drinking a lot. And thankfully, my wife, and we have a relationship book coming out next year. Because man, we have been through the ringer, and we are strong. And a lot of the lessons, we wrote down a lot of the lessons and things we've done in our marriage. And one of those things was, you know, communicating even through the tough times. And she was like, "Hey, like, you need to go get help. Like, you know, I can't help you. You're unwilling to let me." She's like, "But if we had never, ever, ever mentioned divorce, like it was like a unwritten rule, we would never say it. Like, never in a fight was it ever brought up." And that was the only time in our entire marriage to date and or before this when she said, this is how our marriage can end if you are unwilling to seek help. And like that woke me up. And I said, okay. So I went and saw the command chaplain and the command psych, and I said, I need help. So that helped me, you know, got better. You know, I still drink occasionally. Not much anymore. I enjoy a drink hanging out with friends and family. But, you know, it doesn't, you know, I don't drown myself in the bottle or anything like that anymore.
Wow. So then how did you go from that to wanting to help people? Obviously you set up the nonprofit, but was there something that sparked that, you know? Obviously you was grateful to be alive, but some people take that and run with it and that's it. What was the reason for trying to help people?
I started losing friends to suicide. And 2016, one of my mentors killed himself. 2018, a good friend of mine that was supposed to go through our leadership program killed himself. I was seeing other guys. 2013, another teammate had killed himself. So I thought back to that. And I started to think, like, what am I doing? I'm providing clothing. I'm providing events. You know, how is that helping guys who are struggling up here? You know, that's kind of my biggest fear. Like, hey, I give a guy clothing and he goes and kills himself in it, because what did I really do for him? So all of that made me decide to phase that down and get more involved in the TBI, PTSD side. So now I'm on the board for Concussion Legacy Foundation, which I you know, there are two sides of this war we fight right now, losing veterans to suicide. One side is psychological. There's a lot of programs that are trying their best to work with them. And what I try and tell any wounded warrior guy who's listening, who's had trauma, there's a lot of different things that can help. But what works for you may not work for me. And what works for him may not work for either of us. So like you have to go try different things. And what I frequently see with guys struggling through trauma is they'll try one thing and be like, that didn't work. And they'll go back to drinking or drugs or just. So I had tried several things, but what I've come to find is there's a physiological aspect that we don't understand yet. We understand it. We can't diagnose it, we can't treat it, and we can't cure it. So that's why I got involved in Concussion Legacy Foundation, because, you know, how do we prevent that for the future? We don't want to send young men and women off to war to train for war, and to come to find out 10, 20 years later, we're killing them because of the way we train and the blast exposure and all these things that has happened to them. So that'll be the future. But so that was a nonprofit. And then somewhere along that path, I being in the nonprofit, I had to speak a lot. I began to realize, wow, there's a lot of power in my story and in these words. And that kind of led me down the path of public speaking.